JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Monday, June 2nd, 8:55 a.m. Just talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P futures slightly in the red here. Well, I'd say slightly down about a third of a percent. Not a huge surprise considering like all the headlines over the weekend was like nonstop, right? The defense secretary speaking at a conference in Asia, pretty much coming right at China, China coming back with comments, and it seemed like back and forth. You have to think that's all going to resolve with a President Xi and Trump conversation, right? You think that's kind of like where it's headed, and then maybe that could be the next leg for markets. But there you have that. I mean, it's just nonstop headlines, especially now Ukraine and Russia. So, all things considered, I mean, here's the market after its huge, massive rally since April. It's kind of like down 30%. It's not nothing too crazy here. So hopefully you find some footing. I keep talking about that 586 handle on the SPY and 597. It's kind of like been the trading range that I've been looking at for the last 2 weeks. So maybe we can break out of that to the upside this week. For now, I'll take over 590 by Wednesday. A lot of stuff going on this week. Fed Chair Powell makes opening remarks at some kind of 75th anniversary conference today. So he does that at 1 o'clock. I don't know if it's anything of market moving, right? So it's not like he's doing a panel interview or anything like that. So I don't even know if those comments from his opening comments will be published before he does it. Typically, that's what happens. But I don't know if that'll be market moving. The Fed meeting's not for another 2 weeks. We also have the JOLTS report tomorrow, so that's kind of has been a little more important lately. I think people are on the edge waiting for this one big miss on the employment number that's going to show, hey, we're in a recession, right? That's what everybody was barking about since April. So we'll see how that plays out. There's services and manufacturing PMI this week, and then Friday's the May jobs report. So interesting stuff. Also, I don't know if I posted a slide here. The Atlanta Fed GDP now is at 3.8% for Q2, right? Crazy stuff. I don't think that's a recession. And then some nice historicals. I posted that in the chat room just from, I forget, but Ryan Dietrich, the amount of times the market is closed, the S&P is closed over 5% in May. There's been 6 instances, right? So n equals 6, and all 6 of those instances, the market was up on average about 20% over the next 12 months. Green 5 out of 6 times in June. 3-month average up 2%, 6 months. So I mean, I love historicals. Who knows? There's always going to be that 1 out of 6 chance that this doesn't happen, but considering May's performance over 6% on the S&P, its best performance in 35 years. Maybe there's some continuation here. A lot has to happen. I mean, earnings have been strong. I forget where the slide is on that, but you also have like economic data, right? All that hard data continues to be strong. So maybe that sets the footing. Fed, I talked about it last week too. The Fed back a month or 2 months ago, folks were expecting the Fed to have already cut rates once and then going into the June meeting, make it a second time. Now it's pretty much the Fed's there's no probability, or at least market's not pricing a probability of cutting rates until the fall. So interesting stuff. So that's the overall markets, individual names, and then yields are coming down, right? I mean, the whole climber. You have Jamie Dimon this morning talking about how yields are going to remain high just because of the U.S. debt, but the U.S. debt has always been high, right? It's just now it's a function of GDP, right? Or the growth of the country. It's funny, like this morning, Redfin comes out with the housing data and says biggest housing dollar amount on sale ever on record, right? And it's up 20% year over year or something like that. But it's dollar amount, right? Which is a function that housing prices have went up. So obviously, if housing prices go up, you don't need as many houses on the market to have a large amount of houses up for sale, right? Show me the quantity, I guess, or the mean or the average. I don't know. But instead, they chose to, it's like cherry picking the data to make it seem like, oh my gosh, the housing market, the most amount of dollar amount of houses on sale. So it could mean that the entire one little strip in Miami is all for sale in real estate, and that's $100 million. Well, let's say $2 billion of houses on sale, and because of that, that's why so it's not a data point that I pay much attention to, but I guess if that continues to happen, we'll see. All right, so that's overall market. So individual names. Last week I put on the watches. I didn't make any trades Friday. I was staring at some lottos at the open, the Reddits. I almost got some Dell calls, and then Ulta, which I missed the Ulta, so I just passed on that. And those wouldn't have panned out. I mean, you could have got Reddit at the end of the day, and that would have panned out as well, or early morning for the bounce, and then a dip, after whatever that was that caused the dip and then the bounce again. So thankful not to have nibbled those, but then some of the other names I'm in couldn't find some footing. I mean, GameStop finally green averted its three session losing streak. Hopefully that gets over $30 here. But you take a look at GameStop, and MicroStrategy reported another Bitcoin purchase this morning. To me, it just feels like this is kind of setting up exactly how it set up during its earnings, after its earnings and offering news. Gap up, reverse, sell the news, and then it just melted higher for 2 months. I think that's going to be a similar scenario here. Hopefully it gets back over $30. I'm going to use 32 as like a trigger point where I'll add some more strikes to play for upside. But I think it trades into 40s in the coming weeks and then higher. And that's GameStop. W, unfortunately, taken on the chin after the China-U.S. comment, the U.S. comments on Friday in regards to China. Still liked it. I wish it was over its 200-day moving average, or at least held that yes on Friday. It didn't. Thankful I closed my weekly strikes on Thursday for some great gains. Continue to like this one for upside. It gets back over its 200-day moving average. I think it's 45 and then on to 50. And then that Southeast Asia, if there's some kind of trade deal news that happens there, I think that's the next spark for the fire, right? So just going to continue to hold the Junes, but if it gets back over the 200-day moving average, depending on what premiums look like, I might look for some more strikes there. A Universal Display. This is one of my old favorites from back in the day. I used to trade this a lot more than I do, and it seems like the options aren't as liquid as they used to, so it's not as easy to trade. But Goldman Spectacular put on the conviction buy list this morning. I think they already had a $183 price target, but they just reiterated that price target, put them on the conviction buy list. And you look at a chart, and especially over the last like 6 or 7 sessions, just been chopping around. 200-day moving average right there at 162. I would not be surprised to see this catch some fire. So it's one of those names. No debt, tons of cash, great sector. They have some forward catalysts. So it's just finding the right strikes and then playing it when it moves. So hopefully today is the day it can get a spark. It's not gapping too much in the pre-market, but it's always a name that it doesn't really have much liquidity in the pre-market anyway. So right now the bid's 114, the ask is 144. So that's typically how it trades. And I remember sometimes people, if I'm in calls, they wait, it's not moving in the pre-market. It's like typically doesn't move much. Even earnings, it doesn't move too much. But that's a name I'll be watching. Then some other names I continue to have on watch here. I talked about Pool last week. I'm like, I'm not going to add it on Friday either, but it held the 300 handle. So if it can hold 300 today, I might look for some strikes. The 330s look interesting on a risk-reward basis. TKO as well. TKO held the 50-day on Friday. Funny, I was talking about on the rant. It was red, and then boom, it's into the green. Not moving, not too volatile the last couple sessions, which obviously not good for premiums. But if it finds some strength, maybe I'll look for some calls there. Joby, another name that disappointed on Friday. I was hoping it was going to hold 8. It didn't. If it gets back over $8, I may look for some more strikes. Still like this one for double digits. I'll continue to hold my July strikes. That's Joby. And then a few more. DocuSign reports earnings Thursday after the close. Messed up. And I would say messed up. Walmart didn't pay out. Dell didn't pay out with the earnings premium build. Should I try the strikeout? 2 strikes so far trying to trade the premium build into earnings. I might do DocuSign though. I love the name. It used to be one of my top, well, not used to, it was one of my top 5 stocks back in like 2015. I forget when it was, the pre-COVID. It was like a $30, $40 stock. Obviously in COVID, it went up to like $300 based on hey, you can't shake someone's hand and sign a contract in person. So people adopted DocuSign more, became more quickly adopted than it would have without COVID. I still think it has a great place. It's one of those, I always say, there's companies that have moats around their business. The moat around their DocuSign is that they're a verb, right? Back in the day, it used to be your John Hancock. Now it's your DocuSign, right? So, and there's still more leverage for them to push. I don't be surprised if I add some calls and like 104s maybe just for spec calls for premium build into earnings, close some out before the report to cover cost by the rest. If I can, I'll close them out and revisit. MDB also reports earnings this week. I think it's either Wednesday or Thursday after the close. Those premiums are tough too. You got to go up to the 245, 250s, at least how I trade, and those are up over $1. So if those start to come down, don't be surprised I add some of those strikes. And yeah, Macau numbers came out for casinos, right? So, that people who don't follow casinos win, especially some of these names that have the huge exposure in Macau. Typically, Vegas numbers don't mean much because Macau's the big money generator. That's where the big players are, the VIP people and all that stuff. So wins up at $92 here. Tough one for me to trade. Just I've tried to trade Win. You had the Houston Rockets owner doing a stake and things. It just can't seem to get to break out. I guess one day it will, but All right, folks, let's have a great day. I'll be back. Rock and roll.